Ma'am, step away from the vehicle. Hands where I can see them. ID, now.
This is my car. What specific suspicion do you have right now?
It was a blazing Thursday afternoon in downtown Charleston, South Carolina. The sun beat down on the parking lot outside the upscale Riverwalk Mall, glinting off the metallic surfaces of the luxury vehicles parked in neat rows. The scent of hot asphalt mixed with faint exhaust fumes hung in the air, blending with the aroma of a nearby coffee cart. In the middle of this ordinary chaos stood a black woman neatly dressed in a light blazer over a silk blouse, holding her car keys with a calm demeanor, placing shopping bags carefully into the trunk of her black sedan. "Ma'am, step away from the vehicle," a stern voice called out from behind her. She turned to see a young officer badge clipped to his chest hand, hovering near his service weapon, eyes narrowed in suspicion. "Is there a problem, officer?" she asked politely, but with a steady confidence that betrayed years of commanding authority. "There's a suspicious person reported near this area. I need you to step back and show me your identification," he responded, his tone firm, rehearsed. She raised a brow, already noticing the faint click of a second patrol car pulling up, the lights flashing silently but insistently. "I am loading my own car with my own purchases. Can you tell me what suspicious behavior I have displayed?" The officer hesitated, then repeated his demand, escalating tension. Shoppers began to slow, some peering over their bags, whispering to each other. A few raised their phones, capturing the encounter from a distance. The woman kept her hands visible, moving deliberately, reaching into her purse to retrieve her wallet. Inside were a driver's license, professional credentials, and a small card embossed with the emblem of the South Carolina Supreme Court. "You see, officer, everything I'm doing is lawful. I have two options: comply under protest or assert my rights," she said evenly, her eyes meeting his with an unwavering gaze. The officer's jaw tightened. In his mind, a call had come in reporting a suspicious person, a vague description that matched her silhouette near a high-end car. Yet here she stood, composed, unflustered, and clearly in possession of every proof he needed. Still, he called for backup, unwilling to admit uncertainty. The sun reflected off the polished hood of her car, the faint sound of a child laughing somewhere in the distance, the quiet hum of traffic creating a tense soundtrack. The misunderstanding, small at first, now threatened to erupt into a full confrontation. Shoppers paused, recording, whispering, feeling a mix of curiosity and discomfort. "You will wait here while I verify this information," the officer said, stepping closer, his hand brushing the edge of the car. The woman nodded, speaking softly but clearly, "I will comply under protest. But I want to state for the record that this stop is without reasonable suspicion and lacks legal basis." A flash of apprehension crossed his face. Around them, the parking lot seemed to hold its breath. The ordinary act of parking a car had transformed into a high-stakes standoff, and the true identity of the woman soon to be revealed would make the absurdity of the situation even more striking. Her name was Justice Angela Reed, a 54-year-old jurist whose reputation for fairness and unwavering commitment to the law was known across South Carolina. Born and raised in a modest neighborhood in Columbia, she had witnessed firsthand the struggles of communities marginalized by systemic injustice. From an early age, she resolved to pursue a career in law, determined to create a space where equity and accountability mattered more than status or appearance. Her journey had not been easy. She attended Howard University, excelling academically, despite limited resources, balancing part-time jobs to pay tuition and volunteering in legal aid clinics on weekends. After law school, she clerked for influential judges, took on high-profile civil rights cases, and gradually built a reputation as a lawyer who could challenge entrenched power structures without fear. Her rulings on the state Supreme Court had often been controversial, but always grounded in meticulous research, careful interpretation of statutes, and a deep sense of justice. She had presided over cases that exposed corruption, enforced constitutional rights, and demanded accountability from officials who believed themselves above scrutiny. Officer Kevin Marshall, by contrast, was 28 years old with 6 years on the force. He had joined the Charleston Police Department straight out of the academy, eager and ambitious, but with limited experience in nuanced situations involving the public. His personnel file contained multiple complaints about heavy-handed stops and racial profiling, though none had resulted in formal disciplinary action. Supervisors had often noted his adherence to protocol, but flagged his tendency to escalate confrontations rather than de-escalate them. He had learned over time to rely on instinct and assumptions, especially when the descriptions from dispatch were vague or minimal. Marshall's mindset was shaped by repeated training, emphasizing vigilance and quick action, but his exposure to diverse social situations had been narrow. He believed in strict enforcement and feared appearing weak in front of peers or the public. His past experiences with minority suspects had created an unspoken bias, a belief, however unconscious, that certain appearances or behaviors warranted heightened suspicion. While he had moments of procedural correctness, he often ignored subtle cues of lawful behavior, assuming the worst until proven otherwise. The contrast was stark. Justice Reed, with decades of legal expertise, had cultivated discernment, patience, and awareness of rights. Marshall relied on reaction assumptions and the reinforcement of authority. The convergence of these two paths in the parking lot that afternoon was a collision of worlds, one defined by law and reason, the other by procedure and perception, neither fully aware of the deeper dynamics at play. Her calm composure that day was the result of years navigating legal systems, public scrutiny, and confronting injustice with measured resolve. She had anticipated that situations could escalate, that identity might complicate interaction, and that clarity and documentation were essential in moments of confrontation. Marshall, meanwhile, saw only a black woman near an expensive car, the description from dispatch matching loosely, and a chance to assert control, a dangerous combination of misjudgment and implicit bias that would set the stage for the incident to unfold. The air in the parking lot had thickened. Justice Reed kept her hands visible, slowly placing the last bag into the trunk of her car. Her wallet rested in her palm, ready to produce identification if necessary. "Officer, here is my driver's license and my Supreme Court identification. You can verify them immediately," she said, her tone calm but firm. Marshall glanced at the credentials, a flicker of doubt crossing his face, but he shook it off. "Step aside while I call for backup," he barked, pulling out his radio. Within moments, 2 more patrol cars arrived, lights flashing. Shoppers turned their heads, some whispering, some recording on their phones. One man leaned against a nearby vehicle, his camera phone capturing every detail. Another woman, her curiosity piqued, murmured to her companion, "Why are they calling more officers on someone just parking?" Reed's voice remained steady as she addressed the officers surrounding her. "I am fully complying, but I want this documented. There is no reason for escalation." She pressed her Supreme Court ID between her fingers, ensuring it was visible to everyone. The crowd grew as word spread. A teenage boy perched on the curb held up his phone to record. A small group of women paused while shopping bags hung from their arms, witnessing the standoff. The tension was palpable. The ordinary act of unloading groceries had transformed into a spectacle. Marshall's stance stiffened. He could not admit uncertainty in front of the arriving officers and the emerging crowd. The desire to assert authority outweighed reason. In his mind, hesitation was weakness. Reed had years of experience in the courtroom, commanding attention and respect. But here in the parking lot, the rules were skewed by bias and ego. "Please remain calm and step aside for verification," Marshall repeated, though his voice now carried strain. Reed's hands remained visible, her movements deliberate and unhurried. Each gesture, each word highlighted her composure, in contrast to the growing tension around her. The crowd sensed the injustice. Whispers turned to audible muttering, phones recorded capturing angles from every direction. The onlookers' reactions added pressure on the officers, their eyes flicking nervously between Reed and their colleagues. The scene was no longer private. It had become a public display, a live audience bearing witness to a confrontation rooted in misjudgment and bias. Reed's internal calculation was precise. She knew that every action, every hesitation, and every spoken word could be evidence. She maintained her poise, fully aware that the crowd, the cameras, and the arriving backup were recording not just the interaction, but the truth of what was unfolding. Marshall's fear of appearing ineffectual, combined with ingrained assumptions, propelled him further into confrontation. His decisions were no longer solely about procedure. They were about image ego and the unspoken need to maintain authority even as the situation spiraled. The escalation was inevitable. The moment came when the officer motioned for Justice Reed to turn around. The metal cuffs clicked against her wrists as she obeyed, each sound amplified in the sudden silence that fell over the parking lot. Her eyes remained calm, scanning the scene, noting the faces of the growing crowd. The phones raised the whispers of disbelief. The leather seats of the patrol car smelled faintly of cleaning chemicals and old coffee as she was guided to the back. the officer's grip firm but not violent. Reed's mind was working quickly. Every action, every statement, every witness would be crucial. She thought of the legal channels she would pursue, the documentation she would gather. In contrast, the officer's confidence wavered, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his features as he drove her toward the station. The hum of the engine, the intermittent sounds of radio chatter, and the distant traffic formed an oppressive backdrop to the injustice unfolding inside the car. Outside, the crowd remained. Phones recorded the slow progress toward the patrol car, capturing her composure against the stark display of authority. She had expected that public visibility would be part of the equation, but the presence of witnesses amplified the absurdity of the encounter. Each blink of an onlooker's eyes, each slight movement of a camera served as a silent reminder to the officer that this detention would be scrutinized far beyond this parking lot. The ride was tense. Reed remained silent, her posture measured. She considered every legal precedent, every right afforded to her under the 4th and 14th Amendments. Meanwhile, the officer's internal dialogue shifted from justification to doubt, subtle anxiety gnawing at the edges of his authority. He was trapped in a scenario where escalation had become self-reinforcing. His ego fear of appearing weak and reliance on assumption had driven him further down a path with no easy retreat. The approach to the station felt interminable. The ticking of the clock, the faint squeal of brakes at intersections, and the murmur of radios heightened the sensation of slow-motion injustice. Reed's hands were cuffed. Her movements constrained, yet her mind remained free, strategizing and documenting. The officer's grip on the wheel tightened, knuckles whitening, as the realization slowly crept in that the legal and ethical implications of his actions were mounting with every passing second. Inside the patrol car, the contrast between their mental states was stark. Reed composed and deliberate, a strategist even under duress. The officer tense and defensive, spiraling into self-justification. Outside, the world bore witness, shoppers, bystanders, and cameras capturing the unfolding narrative. Every detail, from the tightness of the cuffs to the smell of the car, from the eyes of onlookers to the quiet determination in Reed's expression, would later become evidence of the injustice committed that afternoon. The holding room at the Charleston police station was stark, fluorescent lights buzzing faintly overhead, the faint scent of disinfectant and vinyl chairs filling the space. Justice Reed sat with her hands cuffed, but her posture regal, her eyes scanning the room with calm precision. She placed her Supreme Court credentials on the counter before the desk sergeant, her fingers lingering on the embossed seal. Lieutenant Sandra Whitaker, a seasoned officer with over 20 years on the force, approached her, expression unreadable at first. "Who do these belong to?" she asked quietly, her voice carrying authority and curiosity. Reed looked up serene and replied, "I am Justice Angela Reed, a member of the South Carolina Supreme Court. All identification is valid and verifiable." The sergeant's eyes widened slightly as she examined the credentials, noting the holographic seal and meticulous details. Whitaker picked up the phone, dialing the court's main line to verify. Within minutes, the confirmation came. Reed's identity was authentic, her position indisputable. Officer Marshall, standing nearby, felt a wave of disbelief and panic. His hands twitched at his sides, the weight of the mistake pressing down. He had detained one of the state's highest judicial authorities without cause, misinterpreted reports, and allowed bias to guide his judgment. The air in the room was tense. Every second stretched the gravity of the situation, settling on him like a cold shadow. Whitaker turned to Marshall, her voice steady but firm. "You understand the severity of this, don't you?" He swallowed hard, unable to form a coherent response. The room seemed to constrict, the fluorescent lights flickering, as if echoing the shock of realization. Reed remained composed, every movement deliberate. She requested full documentation: the initial call report, body camera footage, dash cam recordings, and any statements taken. Each piece of evidence would serve as proof, a clear record of the misconduct and a safeguard against further escalation. Marshall's face drained of color as he watched her systematically assert control over the situation. The calm authority in her demeanor making his previous actions appear reckless, misguided, and indefensible. Every error from the initial stop to the call for backup was now laid bare in the sterile light of the station. Whitaker placed a reassuring hand on Reed's shoulder, signaling that the situation was being rectified. Officers nearby began processing the error, returning her identification, and uncuffing her wrists. The room, once charged with tension, slowly shifted, as the realization sank in justice had been threatened, but truth and verification prevailed. Reed rose her posture, unyielding, and addressed the room. This incident is not just about me. It is about ensuring accountability at every level. I will pursue the necessary legal remedies, and every action here will be documented. The weight of her words lingered, a reminder of the responsibilities that came with authority and the consequences when bias and assumption overruled reason. As soon as Justice Reed left the holding room, she immediately began organizing her legal strategy. Her phone calls were deliberate and methodical, first to her legal team, then to colleagues familiar with civil rights litigation, and finally to organizations dedicated to police accountability. Every word she spoke, every instruction she gave was aimed at preserving evidence and ensuring that this incident would not be swept aside. The initial complaint was filed within hours, meticulously documenting each detail. The initial call to dispatch the officer's commands, the presence of backup, and the growing crowd of witnesses recording the incident. Video footage captured by shoppers' phones was compiled alongside the patrol car dash cam and body camera recordings, forming a comprehensive dossier of the event. Every frame confirmed the wrongful detention, highlighting the officer's disregard for established legal rights and the excessive escalation of authority. Public reaction was swift. Social media erupted as clips of the confrontation spread. Comments poured in expressing outrage, disbelief, and solidarity. Legal analysts dissected the encounter, explaining how the officer's actions violated both the Fourth Amendment and state laws protecting individuals from unlawful detention. Media outlets quickly reported on the incident, emphasizing the irony and gravity of a Supreme Court justice being detained for doing nothing wrong. Inside the Charleston Police Department, an internal investigation was launched. Lieutenant Whitaker and senior investigators reviewed all evidence from officer statements to video recordings. The findings were damning. The officer's actions were inconsistent with protocol, unjustified by any reasonable suspicion, and influenced by implicit bias. Recommendations included disciplinary action, retraining, and policy review to prevent future occurrences. The officer involved was placed on administrative leave pending a formal hearing. The department faced public scrutiny with demands for transparency and accountability. Reed's lawsuit moved forward, highlighting not only the personal injustice she had endured, but also systemic issues within the department that allowed bias and poor judgment to go unchecked. Settlement negotiations were inevitable. The city, recognizing the severity and visibility of the case, sought to resolve the matter efficiently, though Reed remained focused on broader reform rather than financial compensation. Her legal team insisted on policy changes, mandatory bias training, and oversight mechanisms to prevent future incidents. The culmination of these efforts was not just personal vindication. Policies were revised. Officers received enhanced training on constitutional rights and racial bias, and the department committed to increased transparency. Reed's case became a reference point, a clear example of how accountability and legal recourse could produce systemic change. It served as a powerful reminder that even those in positions of authority are not above the law, and that diligence, documentation, and courage can transform injustice into reform. This incident provides a stark illustration of the legal protections designed to prevent unlawful detention and discrimination. Under the Fourth Amendment, individuals are protected against unreasonable searches and seizures. Detaining someone without reasonable suspicion, as occurred here, constitutes a direct violation of constitutional rights. Additionally, state laws reinforce that officers must have clear, articulable evidence before stopping or searching a person, and any deviation can form the basis of civil litigation. From a psychological and social perspective, the event underscores the pervasive impact of implicit bias. Officers, like all humans, can be influenced by subconscious stereotypes that affect perception and judgment. In this case, assumptions about the woman's race, attire, and location led to the erroneous belief that she posed a threat. Recognizing bias requires deliberate reflection training and systemic safeguards to prevent individual prejudices from translating into unjust actions. For the public, this incident offers practical lessons. If confronted in a similar situation, individuals should maintain calm document every interaction, keep hands visible, and assert legal rights clearly and respectfully. Recording video or audio noting witness accounts and requesting identification and justification from authorities can be crucial in preserving evidence. Knowing one's legal protections and consulting an attorney promptly ensures that incidents of misconduct can be addressed effectively. Finally, the case emphasizes the importance of accountability. Systems that allow unchecked discretion or fail to monitor patterns of bias risk perpetuating injustice. Policy reforms, mandatory training, transparent oversight, and community engagement are essential tools to reduce violations of rights and to foster trust between law enforcement and the public. Justice Reed's experience demonstrates that awareness, preparedness, and adherence to the law can transform a moment of injustice into a catalyst for education and systemic change. It is a reminder that every citizen has the power to assert their rights, and every institution has the responsibility to uphold justice and equality.